Only real music's gonna last. All that other bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Coliseum of Fantasy Knowledge. This is the IDB Fantasy Empire. Finally getting back on air. We've been busting hump for the draft kit, which is available now to all of you. So just get on it, get it, start getting this information. We're going to kind of give you some of the stuff that you're going to be getting whenever you purchase it. So again, get out there. Website, we're also been updating that. We were working on that late last night. We tried to get a podcast in too, but we had little technical difficulties we're still working through. But going into this week, I mean, a lot of OTA stuff is finally, OTAs are kind of wrapping up, getting ready for training camp. So, you know, that coming up in July. So that'll be kind of the official start of watching a whole bunch of football.
Yeah, and Paul and I have been hanging out a lot together. We went and watched 2 movies together. What was it? Solo and
Infinity Wars.
Yep. Which is one of the reasons why we picked this song, was because of the fade. And if you haven't seen it, we're not going to spoil it.
Well, I think we have to at least tell them that one part. Don't we?
Yeah.
If you have seen it, you'll understand the fade. If you haven't seen it, then go understand. I don't know why you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Unless you're just not into that stuff. But it's a good movie.
But we are down to one mic this week.
Yep.
So it may sound a little bit different this week. Hopefully by next week we have that fixed.
Yep. Technology is fun sometimes. Very fun. This one's just going to be a podcast where we're going to just kind of shoot from the hip. We're going to give you some news. We're going to give you some training camp stuff. I really like position battles. That's something that really keeps me entertained during the whole off season. Again, there's so many. You know, you got the rookies coming in trying to make their spots. You got those older vets that are trying to hold on to that spot as hard as they can and just hope to get out of training camp. I mean, there's at least, I think we are going to cover at least like 7 or 8 teams that I've gotten so far. And this is just from a little bit today, and then I'm going to continue going into training camp into what we're going to have. Because, again, we're trying to get this for the draft kit and stuff because give you the most updated information.
Yep, we'll continue to update that. Next week, we're going to have a news podcast, and it's going to cover everything that we haven't covered from the draft to now. That'll give us time to digest it. That'll give us time to really speak on it and present it all. Yeah,
because really there's not a whole bunch going on right now. I mean, there's just little trinkets here and there. I mean, I think the biggest news this week was the Eagles getting disinvited from the White House. And I didn't even watch the thing yesterday because, again, I was working. So I was down at my folks working on stuff. But I didn't care, really, honestly. I think this thing is way overblown.
Yeah.
And I think this is more. It makes me more on the side of every single player should just protest week 1. I would love to see it because what are they going to do? That's a lot of money they're going to be spending. A lot of money for teams.
I do not want to see that because I like the NFL and I want it to be there for years to come.
It's just a fade. They should go back to the days where they just don't come out at all. Just cut all that out. Let the fans enjoy it. Still do all the flyovers and stuff. But honestly, besides that. It's more of just rookie OTAs. I mean, you had the number 1 cornerback, Denzel Ward. I mean, he was promoted to first team, and that's kind of something we expected.
No surprise.
And, you know, that's something that we cover in our draft kit. And on our website, we even have some of the updated rookies. We give you the first 15, and Denzel Ward still made that list. You know, you got to give him respect as the number 1 drafted cornerback. And I think that's, you know, a talking point to probably the Ohio State thing, you know, with Marcus Lattimore last year.
Yeah, Marshawn, he's kind of a beast.
Marshawn, my bad.
It's okay. I know you don't follow the Buckeyes like I do.
I try not to. I have to watch them like once a year, and I'm good.
Yeah.
Maybe twice a year.
Yeah. And they ruin undefeated seasons.
That is very true. They do. All right, going into talking about our draft kit, we basically hit you with a lot of stuff. We have scoring systems. We have depth charts. We have, again, we're going to be updating these draft charts as well.
Yep. And whenever you hit on the table of contents, Paul, you can pull up all that information next to each.
Then you have our IDP depth charts, which again are going to be really helpful for you come draft time.
There is one thing I do want to note about that is a lot of people who are viewing it on their phones, I believe Android phones, are having troubles pulling it up because of the rich content that it is, and it's a little bit more high speed. Typically, it's better on a desktop.
Yeah, and I have tested it on my phone because I have a Samsung, and I've had the same thing where I can barely get into the page. So it's just something just because there's so much stuff in it, and it just really is rich, like Buck said. We have strength of schedules, which again is important when you're looking week to week on your players. That's always important to know.
And those have the ranks with the home game or wherever the game is being played. It's not necessarily the team that they're playing in most cases.
The next ones we have every down linebackers, the guys that are going to be in there 3 plays, maybe 4 in some certain situations.
Something about that is, again, these are projections. We shouldn't take it as the gospel right now because a lot can happen. We look at the Cleveland Browns with Michael Kendricks. That's something that we don't have yet in our draft kit. We will be updating it for version 2. You buy version 1, you will get all other draft kits, and I have tested it. It does say what email purchased it, so I can easily just kick it out to everybody whenever we get that update.
Because again, everything's going to change once we get into training camps, and we've already had injuries already. So most likely there's probably still going to be 5 or 6 more, I would guess. So that usually seems to be the trend every year. You also have defensive line tiers. So those big guys who get you maybe at the high on some scoring systems, 8, 10 points on a good day. Really good day would be like a fumble recovery and a touchdown if they can.
And our minimum was 120, and this is all season-long ranks. We go 120 deep on defensive linemen, 120 deep on linebackers, and 120 deep on D-backs. And in some positions, we actually go a little bit deeper.
And then you have the defensive line stat leaders. You have that one as well. So that's another that we really like to give you all that information that you possibly can, so you don't have to go anywhere else. It's all in one draft kit. Because I've seen a lot of draft kits where you have to still go find other information outside somewhere else.
Yeah. And another thing that I like about that is whenever you're looking at that page, it really highlights those players that had great years. And then we've also got an efficiency page. And in that efficiency page, it goes off the total snaps and the percentage of plays. And it's all gradient. So the ones that produce the best are going to have green, and the ones that produce the worst are going to have red. And it's really easy to just look across and see mostly green for one player. Who's that player right there?
The one on the top we have is JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul.
So he sticks out to us, and it's really just a nice little flow chart. You can just see what's going on with the player and how they're performing. Yeah,
and it makes it honestly really fun to read. Again, you'll see on the interceptions part on the D-line, you're going to see a lot of red because they're just not going to be producing that stuff. No. But the cornerbacks, I think, is the easiest one to read with your eyes, especially with color. If you are colorblind with green and red, we do apologize. That can't be helped sometimes. And then we also have the same stuff for linebackers. Again, linebackers are usually your bread and butter in your IDP, no matter what you play, how big, how little. Then we also have the defensive backs broke down the same exact way. We also have stat crew biases, which is something that not a lot of other people really go off of. Not a lot of people really hark on, but that's something that actually can get you extra points that your opponent may not be capitalizing on.
Real quick, whenever a team goes on the road, say Cincinnati Bengals go to the New York Giants and play them, and they're playing at the Giants stat crew is going to be the stat crew that's going to officiate who gets the tackles, and they're kind of the gatekeepers of who gets the points for that game. Typically, the Giants are the number one stat crew, and they favor players. That's why we've got Alec Ogletree ranked a little bit higher than most, because we think that and his tackle opportunities are going to be really positive for his numbers this year.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we saw Alex Ogletree go to the Giants, we both went, oh my God, the stats he's going to get.
Yeah.
Like the extra points and stuff he's going to get is going to be crazy.
And there really is a big nod to this, because I've used it in years past. I know a couple of years ago I showed Paul that I had been using it, and then he was like, man, I wish I would have known this.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's stuff you just can't find out there. Like, it's really hard to find.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and you look at some of the other teams on here, down near the bottom, you have the Vikings, who you think, defense, they get a lot of points. But when they actually break down the stat crews, they're pretty stingy, with the total tackles. They give a lot of assists, though. So, I mean, it's a yin and yang type of thing. But besides the stat crew stuff, which the stat crew, honestly, stat ground biases is probably one of my favorites. It's one thing that I really work on every year. We have auction values for these guys. Especially coming in for you auction value people or auctions. Like, auctions are fun because I love to toy with people. I think it's more fun to just play your opponent than play the team. Oh. But, we have them all broken down into linebackers, defensive line, and D-backs.
And again, this is with a $1,000 budget. So just scale it down by 10 if it's 100 or multiply. And this feature alone, we haven't talked about it, but the auction calculator, I think alone is worth the $10. Because if you put in the number, it automatically tells you how much money you have left, how much money you've spent, how much you wanted to spend, how much you actually did, how many positions you have left. It's just a really unique tool that I like to use whenever I'm playing in an auction league, because then I can forecast how much I'm going to have to pay and who I need to be going after.
Yeah, and I was I didn't really know if I would like the calculator last year, but I went through and did a couple mock drafts with some auction leagues, and I used it, and I filled out it was so much easier. Because I just throw in a number, and I would have it all broken down to see where I could go.
Did you feel like you're getting a lot of value?
Yeah, I feel like I was getting a lot more value out of my picks. Again, I feel like in auctions, I have a different approach. I like to play the opponent. So if I know someone likes a certain person, I'm going to attack that and try to make my budget last longer. I'm going to get the other person to spend more, or if I can get them to spend $10 more on a player than they wanted to, then I'm winning.
So you're okay if you end up getting stuck with that player, though?
Yeah. I mean, most of the time it's going to be at the top, So you're going to be looking at those top tier players anyway. Especially if you just break it down just to IDP, just an IDP draft. I mean, most of those are all going to be linebackers. So if you get stuck with one, oh well. Like, you can still make it and budget it. It's a risk, but that's part of fantasy football. Everything's a risk.
Right.
But again, like Buck said, whenever we update it, you will get the updated version. So don't feel like you're just going to get stuck with the first one we come out with and that's it. Because again, this stuff's all going to be changing during the off season. And speaking of the off season, I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about position battles. This is something that, again, I love to watch. It's the reason I only tune into training camps.
And our draft kit is $9.99. You buy it, you get it the rest of the year.
Yeah, and then also subscribe to our website. You get a subscription to that. You're going to get our premium podcasts. So that way you can really hear all the stuff that we're not just giving out for free. You're going to get stuff that's specific for you for subscribing.
Yep, and in that podcast, or series of podcasts, we covered every single defensive rookie and offensive rookie. And we covered every single player except maybe 5 that were drafted.
Yeah, there were some that surprised us. Like, I didn't see getting even drafted at all.
But we go in depth and we talk about who they were as a player, who they were as a student in some cases, and we develop a lot of those heartwarming stories that you always hear about on TV, and some of those guys that are a lot lower touted. The guy that comes to mind is the guy from UCF or USF.
USF, yep.
The quarterback, his family had all got shot and been murdered pretty much. And it was really a sad story just to see him throughout the process. He's probably not going to be a stud in the NFL, but it's nice to hear those stories. And just, especially if you're in like a deep dynasty league, hearing all of these little bits of information, you can kind of index them and put them away in the back of your mind. And whenever you hear about that player, then you can recall that information, and it means so much.
Yeah, we break down tape of games, and we kind of give our opinions about some of them. Like, one that threw me for a loop was Kenny Young getting drafted in the 4th round by the Ravens, because I had him ranked as probably a 7th rounder, free agent.
Yeah.
And, and now he's going to be a guy that we're going to talk about in this OTA stuff.
Yeah.
Which was surprising. I had to go back and relook at tape and see if I missed something. But again, I don't know. I think it's just they must have seen something that they really liked, or he interviewed really well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they've always had that problem ever since Orr left,
Yeah, if he just wouldn't have left, man.
I know. I think I still roster him.
Still would have been a staple on my team if he wouldn't have left. The decisions, man. The decisions we have to make in life. So, talking about the OTA battles and soon to be going into training camp battles, the first one on my list was the Bills, because the Bills have a lot of new pieces. You have the linebacker role. You know, you're going to put that number one pick for the Bills into the starting spot. He's going to get some. It's your boy. I was waiting for you to chime in.
No, I'm really but we should say it.
But Edmonds is going to be the starter on the inside. That's pretty apparent. The guy's going to get some tackles. The one guy playing on his opposite side is either going to be Milano, Humber, or Lorenzo Alexander.
I think Lorenzo Alexander is going to start as a strong side linebacker. Weak side, it's probably going to be Milano.
So, yeah, I would probably agree with that. I think Milano still has a little bit more of an advantage, but Humber was a guy who I thought was going to be decent most of the season, but he only really had like a 4-week. And so I don't know, man. I
actually wrote an article on Humber, and who was the last guy? Bostic. Oh, I freaking hate Bostic.
Oh, we'll talk about him too, so don't don't talk yourself out on John Bostic, the athlete. Another one for the Bills that's coming up is going to be the opposite DN position. You're talking about Eddie Harbrough versus, I can't even pronounce this one guy's name, so I'm sorry everyone who's listening, but Oa Agaza? Like, I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Odigizua, yeah.
I played for the New York Giants.
Yeah. And then Terrence Fede. So, I mean, this is going to be a battle which I think Eddie is probably going to be the starter. But again, this is a battle to watch because this DN spot is really open for the taking. So it's really going to be who shows the best. And they may rotate them. And I feel like several of these positions they're going to rotate till they figure it out.
Typically, the Buffalo Bills do rotate their defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm. Next team up was the Vikings, looking at their nickel cornerback role, because the rest of their backfield's pretty set. I don't think there's going to be any movement there unless an injury happens.
Yeah. You have Newman as their nickel corner.
Well, right now, because again, Newman's still like the 30-year veteran, so I mean, he still has that going. But I mean, you have Mike Hughes, who's coming over from UCF, and he was drafted pretty high, first rounder.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of guys had first round grades. Some guys had second. I was a first as well. Yeah. Then you have Mark Alexander, a really kind of a lesser known name, and then you have Holton Hill, and I threw him into the mix because I really think if he can show on tape what I saw, again, something we talked about in our premium podcast. I love Holton Hill, man. I hate that he went to the Vikings with a passion. But the kid from Texas.
Why is that, Paul? So our new listeners will know.
Because I can't root for the Vikings. It's hard. I'm a Packer fan. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the thing is, Holton Hill, I feel like, has a ton of talent. And the reason he didn't return for his senior season is because he got into suspension issues and had just some disciplinary stuff. And he didn't think he was going to be able to start the next year, so he came out early. And I feel like that's why he wasn't even drafted. Again, he was just a signed free agent. But I think the Vikings killed it in all their signings. We talked about that, I think, in one of our podcasts as well. But Holton Hill, I wouldn't doubt him. I mean, I think Terrence Newman's going to install himself, but I think Mike Hughes is going to get used more in special teams, like first off.
So they've got Waynes and Rhodes projected to start.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hughes actually takes that spot and then Waynes slides back to nickel.
Yeah, I could see that too.
That's another guy that I wouldn't single out.
Yeah.
Or
leave out, yeah. But, I mean, again, if you haven't seen Holton Hill, I would just go look at his tape. I think he's a wild card, and I love wild cards come training camp time, man, because some of those guys are hungry. And I know Terrence Newman's got to be looking over his back a little bit. I mean, there's never any comfort with those veterans because, I mean, if they cut him, they cut him. You know, they're not going to cut these rookies. That's just not going to happen, you know, unless something drastic happens.
All right, since you mentioned some love for Holton Hill, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our classic debate that we always talk about. So you have 10 rounds in a rookie draft, and there are 10 teams. What round are you taking Holton Hill?
Holton Hill, just because the name recognition probably isn't there and he was an undrafted free agent, you could probably easily get him in the 7th if you were going to reach up. But honestly, 8th round is about where I would take him.
Okay.
And again, I'm looking for future value there. And that's what I do with my last picks, if I can do that. I look for a guy who I'm going to probably sit for a while and see what happens. And I think Holton Hill's that guy. I'm not saying he's going to come in and be a starter and blow up the league. But I think the guy has the potential in the frame. I mean, he's a huge guy. You know, I think he's 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he's got the length. So if he can just put it together on the field, I think the Vikings will have another great cornerback.
Yeah.
The next one is the 49ers. They're going to have some stuff moving around on defense. Most of their stuff's going to be offensive, but they do have some on defense. Like you're looking at their free safety situation. You know, you got Jimmy Ward, who's still there, and then you got Adrian Colbert. Those two guys are going to be in an interesting battle, and I actually like this battle the more I researched it. With Ward, again, he's been injured 3 out of the 4 seasons he's played.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only completed 1 full season. And he's coming up on his option year. So he's coming up on his 5th year option. So again, playing for money. So you like those guys who are a little bit hungry. But with Adrian Colbert, what's crazy is when he filled in every time Jimmy Ward got hurt, he had a higher PPF score of 77.6 over Ward's 46.9. So whenever he came in, he had really good stuff, and he was showing it. Again, PPF is the Pro Fantasy Football. It's stats. Pro Football Focus. And they break down all these stat numbers and stuff as well. So it's kind of a beneficial tool. Because I wouldn't have known that.
It's kind of the dogma around the league of, hey, if you're somebody, you need to listen to these people because the way they rank their players, even though some of them are subjective and I disagree. But we'll leave that where it is.
What do you think about Ward and Colbert?
I think Ward's going to get the start. Like you said, he's got a huge injury history. I think Colbert is going to struggle to break the starting roster, but he definitely has opportunity if Ward goes down.
Yeah, and obviously you have the history of the 3 out of 4 seasons being hurt. That really does. To me, that stood out more than anything.
So our listeners understand where we're coming from. What are your thoughts on injuries? Like, say, a guy like Luke Kuechly or a guy like Ward that have had the consecutive. I'm a big guy on 2. If they have 2 years in a row, then I start labeling them as an injury-prone player. But 1 year, I'm willing to buy low and discount them, obviously because I can, But what are your thoughts? Do you buy into that narrative?
I feel the same. I feel about the same way.
Okay.
Now, some of those guys that you see the same stuff, like we'll just go Clay Matthews and his groin injury. I feel like every year there's been a groin injury.
Yeah.
But, he still has the parts where he produces in games.
Yeah.
Fantasy-wise, not as high,
yeah.
To be fair. But, I mean, look, I'll give you the biggest one. The biggest elephant in the room is J.J. Watt. If everyone goes by, say, like the 2 year being injured, then he should be super low on everyone's list. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's not going to happen because he carries over that lineage of when he's 100% healthy.
And that's another thing that we need to talk about in weeks to come is how we view fantasy football, because I think the lens is a big thing that we should consider. Whenever I'm thinking about players, the classic player that comes to mind is Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson can blow up and has blown up. He's retired, but he can blow up in a game and score you 40 points.
Mm-hmm.
But when are you going to start him? If you never know whenever you're going to start him or when he's going to be healthy, he's worthless.
Mm-hmm. Because we've all had that happen where we decide to bench somebody and then they end up having like a 30-point game at the D-line spot and you're like, why did I not play them this week,
Yeah.
But I mean, again, that is also kind of broke down a little bit more in our draft kit. We're going to give you the little extra tools to help you do that. So that's another great reason. And then you look back to the 49ers and back to their more position battles. I really like the right DN spot. Left DN's pretty sealed up. But you got Armstead. You got him versus Ronald Blair. You're going to be better at this name than I will. But Pitta Tuminapo?
No, you got that one.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just write him down. I'm not a pronouncer of these last names. What's his last name?
Where is it?
Right there.
Pitta Tuminapo.
I know it's Samoan, but
I've never heard of this guy. And Paul, you can speak to this. Like, I can pull names out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got Jeremiah Atacha.
Coming out of
the Chargers.
Yeah.
Yep. What I like about this is I think Armstead's probably going to be the starter. But the thing that Blair, he was actually doing really good, but he's had injuries since his rookie year. And that's something that I've went through and notated. With Pitta, he was only active 2 games, so we really don't know him. For me, he's the wild card in this situation with the 4 players total.
And go ahead and circle him because he's a guy that we can do some research on.
Yeah, and we'll get some more. I just like his name, Pitta. I just like the name Pitta.
That Itachu guy, what comes to mind when you think of this guy?
Underachieved with the Chargers.
Well, that too. I also think this is the guy that they're going to fulfill the Elvis Dumerville role. You know? And that's all he's going to be, is going to be that third down pass.
And I think they only signed him for a 1-year contract, if I remember correctly. So, again, that's just another I think he'll be a rotational as well. So,
but I do see Eric Armstead at least being a 2-down defensive end for that team.
Yeah, I would agree with 2 downs. Because, again, with their defense, we don't really know what they're going to get because they're still fairly young in some spots. So, I think it's interesting. It may not be talked about amongst a lot of people, but we'll see. Now moving on to the Ravens, we got the inside linebacker spot next to C.J. Mosley.
Yep.
And most people, it depends on who you are,
hey, go ahead and
probably
write
go
this,
with Patrick.
Go ahead and write this up. It's going to be that Kenny Young kid. End of the day.
You are?
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah, that's one of the guys on here. Kenny Young, you got Bam Bradley, you got Correra, and you got Patrick Onsor.
No, thank you.
Now, the thing is, Bam Bradley, he was hurt last year. But he had a really good preseason, and I went back and watched some of his highlights on the preseason. The kid was hitting. Like, he was going out there and smashing fools, which you should when your first name is Bam. You have to. And you play linebacker, you have to. So I think he's an interesting mix if he can be healthy and kind of show the Ravens what he can still do, if he can get back to that level. With Young, again, he was a 4th-round pick. I feel like the thing with Young, which you already said I think you like him more, is that he can actually cover tight ends. Mm-hmm. He has the speed to do it. And the reason that's important is because the Ravens gave up the 8th highest points to tight ends in fantasy football. They were giving up, on average, 10.7 points a game for tight ends, and that's in standard scoring. So you're looking at, they gave up 856 yards and 8 touchdowns to tight ends. So a lot of that has to be covered through the linebacker position. Yeah. Someone has to get on him. And I think Kenny Young is faster than Bam Bradley and Onsor. Correra, he's a little bit slower too. So I think, honestly, what's crazy is I never would have thought Kenny Young would be in the mix at the end of the day. So I feel like this is a good 4-way battle that I'm actually looking forward to.
Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of 4-ways, but I really do think that he's going to be a stud, and he's going to rise to the occasion. He's going to take that job.
Well, I'm liking Kenny Young. All right, man, I'm notating it. Next one up, we got the Cardinals. You got the cornerback 2 spot. They're looking for something across from Patrick Peterson because he can't do it all himself. You got Brandon Williams, you got Marcus Williams, and you got Beanie. So out of those 3 guys, I think Brandon Williams will probably start.
Who's Beanie?
Beanie Benwicki?
Benwickery.
Yeah.
From Carolina.
Marcus Williams, I think, is interesting. But, again, I think Brandon Williams is going to probably seal that up. But just one to watch because I know the Cardinals aren't set. I have no idea what the Cardinals are going to do. They're under a new regime, so you really never know. Same thing with the Lions whenever I get to them.
What I'd really like to know is what they're going to do with this Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, I feel like we're both ready for that because the kid had some special abilities, and I think still does. Obviously.
He's another Deion Buchanan.
Yeah.
That's what he's slated behind.
You got Chandler Jones moving to the DN spot instead of linebacker. I think he'll still flex sometimes.
Yeah.
But, again, different defensive
change. Really, though, fantasy-wise, that'll screw you because he'll be listed as one and be playing the other or vice versa. It really doesn't matter what he's listed as. He's a defensive end. He's always rushing the passer.
Yep, he is always a pass rusher. Speaking of their defensive line, you got their defensive tackle spot, which this is really the only one that has, besides the Kansas City Chiefs, it's probably the only one that has a real battle. You got Rodney Gunter, you got Robert Kimdichie, you got Corey Peters, and Olsen Pierre.
Kimdichie, go ahead and write him up. We saw him last preseason. Destroyed until he got on PEDs. Yep. Actually, he didn't actually have PEDs. Did he get hurt?
Yeah, he got hurt.
Yeah. But we kept talking about how it looked like he was on PEDs because he was destroying last preseason. He's going to take that job.
My thing is I'm not as sold yet just from all the stuff I've been reading because honestly the coaching staff is not that high on him anymore. I feel like they've been waiting for the production, kind of like what we've been waiting for, and they haven't seen it yet. I don't mind Corey Peters, man. I think that kid has some talent. I think he's a body dude. I think he needs to work a little bit on getting past the first level, but he's a run stuffer.
Okay.
I think Robert does have a lot of talent. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I feel like maybe this will push him to the next level. You can only hope it does. Because again, I don't know if the Cardinals, because there was even some rumors that he may be a cut candidate if he doesn't show up and play better than some of these guys.
God, I hope so, and the Raiders pick him up.
Thinking for your team, that's what we do.
Oof.
All right, moving into the Steelers, and I kind of wanted to finish with them because they have the biggest segment of defense.
Okay, we'll come back to them.
Because you have the biggest void. You want to wait for them for last?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm good with that. All right, you got the Jets. This is one that I actually talked about in our draft kit, or our draft podcast, is this battle at nickel cornerback. The reason I like this battle is because Buster Skyrine versus Perry Nickerson. And Perry Nickerson was not a guy I was super high on in the beginning, but once I went back and saw what the Jets could do with him, I like him a lot more than I thought. Reason is because Perry Nickerson was a 6th-round pick. Skyrine has been kind of the guy who's been there, but the thing is, Skyrine's going to be a free agent after this year.
Yeah, he's been a journeyman most of his career with the Browns, the Jets. I believe that's it.
Yeah.
But I'm not holding on to Buster Skyrine if I can trade him.
Yeah. And, looking at dynasty value, Perry Nickerson is a guy who the coaching staff really, really likes at this point. They've been very high on him. And the Jets could actually save money by cutting Buster. So that could be a training camp cut to get them some money, maybe pick up someone else. I don't know if they would, but just save some cap. So that's one that honestly I think is one that's going to be really undersold, but I think it's going to be a fun battle if it can happen.
Yeah.
I just really like this. I think Perry Nickerson also has a special teams value too.
You want me to be completely honest?
Well, of course.
I could care less about that battle. I really could.
I just like it. There's something that draws me to this, and I don't know why. I just like this battle.
Okay.
You got the outside linebacker role also with the Jets. You got Josh Martin, Dylan Donch, Lorenzo Molden, and David Bass. I think right now it's pointing towards Martin leading right now in that outside linebacker spot. With the thing with Dylan is he got hurt in week 2 of the season, so we haven't really seen enough on tape yet. Lorenzo just hasn't produced with the Jets, to be completely honest. And then I think David Bass came on late last year and really showed us some flashes.
This is a strong side linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing about this, talk about Bass real fast.
Well, the thing about Bass is he was one of those waiver pickups that actually probably got you some decent points because he actually was playing really well. But the teams they played also ran to his side more, so he had more tackle opportunities in those games for whatever reason. Because I think one of those games was the Atlanta Falcons game where he had a good game. So with Bass, I think Bass is honestly right behind Martin to me, personally.
So for me, the strong side linebacker typically in this formation is going to be your torpedo. His main goal is to just blow up that lead blocker. After that, the other linebackers are going to flow, so are the safeties. So you got Avery Williamson, you have Darren Lee, and you have Demario Davis. All 3 of these guys are going to score more points than that 4th linebacker. Mm-hmm. That is why I could care less about that. I don't mean to shoot all these down, Paul, but I'm just trying to.
It's just a position battle that these guys can use as a platform to move into different spots.
So fantasy-wise, are any of these guys relevant?
If David Bass starts, I think he'd be the only one that's fantasy relevant.
Okay.
I don't know if Josh Martin would. But again, injuries happen, so it's always something to have in the back of your head.
Right on. Because it is a fantasy podcast, I always try and bring us right back to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, another one is the Seahawks, because they have a lot of changing on defense, kind of a change in the guard in a lot of their spots. The defensive tackle spot, you got Tom Johnson versus Nazier Jones. Nazier got hurt last year. I think Tom Johnson's a better pass rusher. I think he'll start. But Nazier Jones is also a 3rd-round pick, so he has a little bit more lineage. I think they still don't want to give up hope on Nazier Jones, but I still like Tom Johnson. I think he's a better pass rusher, and that's what the Seahawks need up the middle because they haven't had that in a while. Their left side cornerback is the other now big spot where everything's open. You're getting Richard Sherman's gone. Griffin number 1, the first one to come out. Year 2 Griffin, he's going to be moving over and taking that spot. So you're looking at Byron Maxwell.
Ooh.
You're looking at Elliott, or DeAndre Elliott. Nico Thorpe, which I think Nico's listed as a starter at this point. You've got Dante Jackson, who was originally a safety, but I think they're working on maybe converting him. And Trey Flowers actually came up on my list. The reason is because he's listed as a safety, but he did play cornerback throughout his collegiate career as well. So there could be some potential there.
From Oklahoma State.
From Oklahoma State.
Not the defensive end for the New England Patriots.
That'd be interesting, though. Get a DN playing safety.
Speaking of DNs playing safety, what if the other Griffin brother with his 4-3 played corner?
Oh, that'd be fun. Because he actually played D-back in college. He played everywhere. It could be the Griffin show, man. It could be the next
What do you think?
Legion of Griffin. I don't know, man. I love Shaq Griffin. As long as he's on the field, I'm happy. I don't at this point. I don't care. As long as he's out there, I'm fine with it. For this cornerback,
That was far-fetched.
oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think Byron Maxwell is going to be the guy who's going to lead going into training camp. But again, I didn't think Byron Maxwell has played that well in the last few years to be fantasy relevant for me.
Yeah.
If some of these other guys like Nico get in there, I may take a shot at that because I think Griffin is getting enough respect, but I still think Griffin's going to get thrown at too. I think their secondary is going to see something different.
Yeah.
Their cornerbacks are going to be getting thrown at. So you lose Richard Sherman, you lose some of that prestige in your secondary, and that just happens.
The Legion of Doom.
Yeah, more like the Legion of Boo-Boos. Pretty much what happened last year. Trey Flowers, I feel like, is an interesting prospect because that was a kid who was drafted this year, again from Oklahoma State. And if he moves over to cornerback and can play it well, I think he could be a really good rotational guy that may end up being the guy who's picked on the most. Could easily happen because that's what happens with rookies. The interesting thing about Dante Jackson is he actually started last year for the 49ers, so he has that starting experience over some of these younger guys. But I think Maxwell will hold out because, again, they only have him on a 1 year, $1 million deal, so it's really not going to be that much. Moving into the DN spot, and that's the one that I'm most excited about with the Seahawks, you have Marcus Smith, Deion Jordan, and Rasheem Green. Again, Rasheem Green being the draft pick out of USC, a guy that I really like, and we even talked about last night when we were working on our rookie list. It's a guy who I think is going to be a starter until I'm proven otherwise. The one that's throwing the kink in my wheel of Rasheem Green is Deion Jordan. He could honestly be a breakout guy. He's on a 1 year deal, so it's kind of like a prove it deal. I think the Seahawks like his physicality and his body size for what they're working with. So it could easily be a battle down to who's going to start near the end of preseason. So this could be one that could go on for quite a while, and it's one that I'm okay with watching. I think it'll be fun.
Right.
Moving on to the Steelers, our last team we'll talk about tonight.
I love the Steelers.
Again, Buck's a Raiders fan, but he loves the Steelers on defense.
Don't tell my dad.
Well, your dad's going to hear about it sometime. And I'm telling him about the jerky, too, so don't try to get out of that one either. So we're looking at the cornerback spot for the Steelers.
Jerky.
Yeah, the beef jerky. What the hell else kind of jerky are you talking about? Nothing like deer jerky. Ain't deer season yet. So you got the cornerback spot. You got Artie Burns versus Cameron Sutton. What do you think?
That's what I think. That's very.
The reason this is a position battle right now is because Artie Burns got hurt last year.
Yeah.
I don't think Artie Burns is that good personally.
Ooh.
I think Cameron Sutton's a little bit better. I think Cameron Sutton coming out of Tennessee when he came out, I like Cameron Sutton.
Okay.
I think he showed enough last year near the end of the season for me that he could push Artie Burns to a new level. And maybe that makes Artie Burns more elite. I don't know, but
yeah.
I like that as just a one-on-one battle. It's one of the few ones that are on here that are just straight one-on-one.
I'm okay with that. I do like Artie Burns. I think he was fantasy relevant. Honestly, somewhat Darius Slade numbers. Not with the interceptions, of course.
Yeah.
But with the tackling numbers, he's right there.
Because he got picked on a lot.
You know who he reminds me of? Tackling-wise?
William Gay? He used to play for the Steelers, too. I mean, I feel like they're a lot.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
For real?
Yeah.
Nice.
His little dance, man, whenever
Yeah.
he puts his hands on his head. That's so funny.
Yep, that's very true. Another one that's going to be really the one that, well, I mean, there's two positions. I'm not going to say this one's better, but inside linebacker. You got to replace Shazier. You ain't going to be walking through them doors anytime soon. You got John Bostic, a guy who Buck loves.
I absolutely hate John Bostic. I think he should be thrown at the end of the bench and not accepted. Just,
I love it.
Just pay Ryan Shazier. Take his brain out and put it in John Bostic.
So you got John Bostic, you got Tyler Malkovich. Is it Malkovich or Makovich? Matekovich. Okay. And then you got Terrell Edmonds. He's thrown in this list. And he's going to be mentioned in our next segment, too.
Yeah, I think Terrell Edmonds is going to slide down and play the Ryan Shazier role. I think they're going to go into more nickel, which is going to leave that safety on the field a lot more. That's personally what I think they're going to do. I don't think they're going to be rolling out with John Bostic. It's going to be Terrell Edmonds, and it's going to be Vince Williams. They're going to have T.J. Watt on one side and then maybe Dupree.
Now, I want to throw in, because we're going to talk about Terrell a little bit more in the next position battle, but with Tyler, the thing is, Malkovich.
Oh, Matekovich.
Sorry, I'm going to keep calling him Malkovich.
He's a special teamer. He is a special teamer by nature.
Yeah, again, I went through a lot of Steelers reports when I was reading about it because I didn't know much about him either.
Yeah.
But the thing is they said that if he wouldn't have got hurt in the exact same game that Shazier got hurt in, he would have probably replaced him in the meantime. And that's something, because they didn't have John Bostic last year. To be fair, he's with the Colts.
I don't think that's a good idea because he was getting roasted on the backside of plays throwing to the tight end.
I mean, I'm not saying
who was it? The Ravens, whenever they exploited the hell out of him? Matekovich?
Yeah, I think so. And Matekovich is coming back from a torn labrum. That's what kept him out, too.
The thing about that guy is he's the classic decent smarts, slow reaction, can't make his motor in his head contribute to what he's wanting Paul Warlow.
I was going to say Paul Warlow. I was like, is this kind of what you're going with?
He is the essence of this type of linebacker. But Paul Warlow, I believe, was the best of these type of linebackers.
Yeah, I'd agree. But I like Terrell Edmonds moving down in the box. That's one of the reasons I drafted him higher, is because I thought that maybe he would get a shot at linebacker. I think we were literally talking about it on a podcast, and we both looked at each other. We both went, "Oh wow, that's like they could play him like they would in Green Bay, just moving down the linebacker box every once in a while, and he'd be just fine." Again, he's the older brother of the other Edmonds, right? Because the other Edmonds, I think he's 20, so going to the Bills. Yeah. The last one.
That being said, I did not like Terrell Edmonds as a prospect. But whenever I saw that he was going to the Steelers and they have the opportunity to replace that speed of Ryan Shazier, I think that he can step in and do it. Now, what he does have is he has bloodlines to his brother. Mm-hmm. Not seeing him exhibit what his brother exhibits, that's kind of frustrating, you know. So that's something that I want to continually remind myself is, this is a guy that I didn't have as high as what I'm wanting to put him at now. So I'm constantly trying to throttle myself back, even though I love this opportunity for him.
Yeah, and that's what I think is also relevant to note is Virginia Tech wasn't really well known for their safety play. You know, he came up and made plays, but it was more about the linebacker position at Virginia Tech, where they both played. I think Terrell also had a lot of good plays. I liked him on tape. I actually liked him a lot when we did our draft stuff. I just think he's got the body size, and I think he has the same motor that his brother has, you know, just being, a year older or 2 years older, whatever it is. Yeah. I think the kid has it, and I did not expect the Steelers to take him in the first round, but when they did, I was like, wow, I kind of like that pick. Like, as soon as he was walking across the stage, I'm like, I like that pick. Yeah. Like, I can see this.
Yeah, and it has pedigree, too, especially going in the first round.
Yeah.
That's a big indication of what they want to do with him on defense.
Yeah, and that leads it right into the last position battle of safety. You know, you have Morgan Burnett, Sean Davis, Terrell Edmonds, and Marcus Allen. Again, Burnett coming over
from... Sean Davis, Morgan Burnett.
That's what you're going with?
Yeah, that's it.
And again, Morgan Burnett coming over from Green Bay. But Burnett's also been a guy who's been top 5 when he's healthy for the last 4 or 5 seasons in points, except when he was injured. So I think it's awesome I think Burnett's going to fit in great with the Steelers. I mean, I hate to see him go to another team, but I like the Steelers too. Yeah. They're an AFC team that I actually root for at points because I feel like they're the good guys amongst the Patriots and stuff like that who I can't root for. So Marcus Allen, I think, is going to be the guy left out at the very end. He'll probably be just a role guy. But again, I think it's going to be Burnett and then Sean Davis if Burnett can come back healthy. But we got to see that in training camp. And I think we will. Again, Terrell Edmonds could be a guy who comes in, plays maybe a down, a safety, and then comes in the box on third down. So, I mean, you can see him flexing all over the field.
Yeah, I see him playing more of what I expected to see Jabril Peppers play.
Yes. I think Terrell has a little bit more of that linebacker body as well.
Again, our draft kit is $9.99. You can find that on our website. You go to the homepage, you click on store. Once you get to store, you'll see it right there. It's in big gold letters. It says IDP Fantasy Empire, and you'll see the football. Click on that. Go ahead and check out. We fixed all the problems, I believe, with the checkout process. We've been selling a lot of these lately. It seems like a lot of our customers will buy it, and then we'll get an email shortly after, hey, we love this, man. We've even had a couple people buy the years prior this season, which was really odd.
Yeah.
But I assume they were wanting to kind of get that free dollar. I say free very loosely.
Yeah.
But it was $1, and they could see what we had last year. It's sort of similar. We've changed some stuff up, added a lot of stuff. But it lets you know, hey, this is what type of material we produce before you spend that $10 if that's what you want to do.
Exactly. And honestly, it's well worth it. I wish I would have had a draft kit like this when I first started doing IDP for the first time. Because honestly, I walked into a Lions den thinking I'd be all right. Be like, oh, I'll just get players that I know. No, that's not how it worked. I had way too many cornerbacks and safeties and never made that mistake again. I'm always linebackers first, then safeties. But that's a great thing about this draft kit is it will help you, especially if you're a new person or you're a vet of 10 or more years or 8 or more years, whatever it is. It's still going to give you more tools to be better than your competitors.
So what is it about our draft kit that helps the advanced player for you?
For me, it's the scoring bias. It's the breakdown of all the stats because Buck is one of those guys who is amazing with stats. He can break them down and make them make sense to you. Because some people, they look at all the numbers and they're like, what the hell does this mean? I don't understand it. But the way Buck breaks it down and all the efficiencies is amazing. Like, I give him so much credit for that, man. It's so great to see. And that's one thing that I love is just that stuff. And, again, we try to give you the best positional breakdowns as well. So that way you know the guys who are going to be on the field more. So you can target them and get them on your team faster than everyone else can, who may just be name hoppers.
And not only that, but Paul and I go to bat for our players. Whenever we're sitting here ranking players, he's like, no, why do you have that player? I'm like, I have this player because of X, Y, and Z. You know, and then we'll go back and forth. Honestly, whenever we bring our two tiers together, that's one of those moments where it's like, I don't want him that high. And we will sit here and debate it, though.
Yeah.
But
and those are fun. I love those sessions, man. Just sitting around going, I'm like, no, I'm going to keep my guy where he's at. Like, I like him there at that spot. Because I think we got in that spot around the 30s and 40s where we were just like, no, I want to keep this guy here. One
of those guys, being a Miami Dolphins player, we're both pretty excited. Is he projected to start?
I don't know, man. I hope so. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I wanted for so long, but I could just never keep him on my roster. I had to move. Like, I had to get all the Bengals linebackers I could.
And that's another thing we could put up soon, like a sleepers, just top 10 maybe.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to hit us up on Twitter. If you got questions or you want to ask us something, hit us up on our email. We have so many ways to reach out to us.
Our Twitter is at IDP Fantasy. Our email is it's IDP Fantasy Empire at gmail.com. And our website is idpfantasyempire.com.
Yeah, super easy to find. Again, you'll love all the stuff. I mean, we got pictures on there, so you'll know exactly when to get in there.
And the visuals are beautiful. It's a nice aesthetic website.
Yeah. And it's simple. It's simple to use. You're not going to get lost in 1,000 ads.
Yep.
So that's the only good thing. It's not going to slow your computer down.
Speaking of ads, if anybody is interested, hit us up. We've got a little advertisement page. You can tell us what company you are, what you're trying to sell, and we can talk to you offline.
Yeah, exactly. So with all that being said, go out, get our draft kit so you can start building your empire today.